Welcome to this week's Global Digest. Check out the full in-depth podcast on Spotify. Just search for Global Digest and give us a follow to stay up to date each week. If you'd like to see the source documents, please send me a direct message. Today's briefing explores 10 global dynamics shaping the year ahead, from artificial intelligence to international security, from climate policy to biomedical innovation. These patterns reveal how power, technology, and governance are moving in sharply different directions. Let's start with the first pattern. AI hardware consolidation meets courtroom friction. The AI hardware race is escalating at a breathtaking pace. NVIDIA has become the first U.S. company valued at over $5 trillion, driven almost entirely by its dominance in AI infrastructure. Intel, unwilling to fall behind, is reportedly negotiating a $5 billion acquisition of the chip startup Sambanova Systems. These kinds of deals aren't about gradual progress. They're about speed. It's faster to buy talent and intellectual property than to spend years developing it in-house, but that same speed brings friction. Palantir has sued former engineers for allegedly stealing proprietary data and algorithms, a reminder that the fight for AI supremacy is as much a legal contest as a technical one. Governments are watching closely. Antitrust regulators in the United States, Europe, and China now see AI chips as strategic assets. Every blocked merger or licensing decision could reshape who controls the foundations of artificial intelligence. The global chip war is no longer just an engineering race, it's also a courtroom drama. Nuclear rhetoric resurfaces amid stalled arms control cooperation. Across multiple capitals, the language of deterrence is getting louder. Former President Donald Trump called for the United States to resume nuclear testing for the first time in 3 decades, framing it as a response to China's buildup. Iran's foreign minister condemned the statement as reckless. Russia, meanwhile, is showcasing new missiles and underwater drones as part of what President Putin calls a modernized deterrent. All of this is unfolding in a vacuum. Most arms control agreements have either expired or been suspended. Without functioning dialogue, leaders fall back on public threats and military symbolism. The strategic logic is old, but the context is new. Hypersonic weapons, autonomous systems, and shrinking warning times make every signal riskier. The world hasn't entered a new arms race yet, but it's certainly rehearsing one. The greatest uncertainty now is whether rhetoric remains theater or becomes policy. Routine electoral cycles continue alongside contested legitimacy. Elections are still happening on schedule, but faith in their fairness is eroding. In Tanzania, President Samia Suluhu Hassan claimed victory with 97% of the vote after the opposition boycotted the race. In Bangladesh, the main opposition party was barred entirely from participating. Similar tensions appear elsewhere. Internet blackouts, jailed challengers, restricted observers. Governments maintain the appearance of democracy while managing outcomes behind the scenes. The effect is corrosive. Voters go through the motions of democracy, but doubt that ballots can truly change power. International observers call it a crisis of legitimacy. Yet incumbents defend these landslides as proof of stability and progress. The ballot boxes are full, but the trust inside them is empty. Climate impacts mainstream while policy ambition lags targets. The effects of climate change are now part of daily life. Record heat waves, floods, and fires dominate headlines across every continent. But political response remains sluggish. The United Nations warns that all current national pledges combined would cut global emissions by only 10% by 2035. Scientists say the reduction must be closer to 60% to meet the Paris goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees. Governments cite economic risks and social backlash as reasons for delay. Fossil fuel interests continue to influence negotiations, and most climate plans push real action into the future. Awareness has never been higher, yet ambition remains trapped by short-term politics. The climate clock is ticking faster than the policy process built to respond to it. Middle East hostilities oscillate with limited de-escalation mechanisms. Across the Middle East, conflict continues to move in predictable cycles, brief ceasefires followed by renewed fighting. The recent Gaza truce brokered by the United States collapsed within hours. Israel accused Hamas of violations. Hamas denied it. Airstrikes resumed and tensions spread to Lebanon and Yemen, where Houthi rebels threatened retaliation. Mediation efforts from Egypt, Qatar, and the United Nations provide temporary pauses but lack enforcement power. These are ceasefires of convenience, not durable peace agreements. Each side uses the pauses to rearm, not reconcile. The pattern remains unchanged: escalation, exhaustion, and relapse. Until a trusted mechanism for verification and accountability emerges, the region's conflicts will keep resetting rather than resolving. Consumer tech cycle remains steady heading into the holiday season. Amid global uncertainty, one corner of the economy is surprisingly stable: consumer electronics. Apple projects double-digit iPhone growth in the holiday quarter. Industry data shows global smartphone shipments rising more than 2% as consumers upgrade devices and retailers offer trade-in deals. Supply chains have stabilized after pandemic disruptions, and gadgets are now viewed as everyday necessities rather than luxury items. Even with inflation squeezing households, people budget for phones, laptops, and wearables before cutting elsewhere. Technology has become the durable good of modern life, refreshed annually, financed monthly, and marketed relentlessly. The result is a quiet form of stability that offsets volatility elsewhere in the economy. Markets show optimism amid mixed real economy signals. Stock indexes are rallying while economic indicators remain uneven. The Nasdaq and S&P 500 climbed sharply on AI-related news and major acquisitions. Amazon stock jumped 4% after announcing an OpenAI partnership. Investors are betting on a soft landing, cooling inflation, steady employment, and rising tech profits. Yet central banks caution that inflation progress is incomplete. Manufacturing and consumer data remain inconsistent. The disconnect between markets and fundamentals is widening, a sign that liquidity, sentiment, and algorithmic trading may now drive price action more than economic reality. Optimism itself has become the asset class. Whether it pays off depends on how gently the global economy touches down in 2025. Multilateral environmental governance stalls while civic recognition advances. International cooperation on climate remains gridlocked. Over 100 countries missed the deadline to update their national climate plans. Talks on a global plastics treaty collapsed without agreement, yet outside official forums, civic and legal momentum is building. Climate marches are drawing record crowds. The International Court of Justice issued an advisory opinion declaring the Paris Agreement's 1.5-degree target legally binding, a milestone for climate litigation worldwide. National courts are now citing that opinion to pressure governments and corporations. The paradox is clear. Diplomacy is paralyzed, but accountability is expanding through law and civil society. When multilateralism falters, the courtroom becomes the new negotiating table. Biomedical research delivers incremental gains with uncertain time to impact. In laboratories, progress continues, measured, cautious, and expensive. AstraZeneca has paid over $500 million to license a CRISPR gene editing platform, betting on future therapies. A new treatment for limb-girdle muscular dystrophy produced modest improvements in early trials. Scientists recently reported a compound that helps spinal nerves regenerate in animals. Each headline promises hope, but none delivers a cure yet. That's the nature of biology, extraordinary complexity and long timelines. Unlike the software world, you can't debug a gene overnight. Incremental progress is still progress, but the distance from discovery to treatment can span a decade or more. The challenge now is translating vast investment into accessible therapies before public patience runs out. Courts mediate social contention and privacy in familiar ways. As technology outpaces legislation, courts are stepping in to define digital boundaries. In the United States, a jury ordered Google to pay more than $400 million for illegally collecting location data, with plaintiffs seeking billions more in profit disgorgement. The Supreme Court declined to revisit Section 230, leaving broad protections for online platforms intact. In Europe, a Dutch court forced Meta to offer users a choice to disable its algorithmic feed under the Digital Services Act. In Australia, lawmakers banned social media for children under 16, and companies agreed to comply. Across regions, judges are relying on existing privacy and consumer laws to regulate 21st century behavior. The legal system may move slowly, but it's proving adaptable, applying old rules to new realities with surprising effectiveness. Pulling these 10 threads together reveals the core picture of our time. Artificial intelligence and financial markets are accelerating, compressing years of change into months. Governance, diplomacy, and climate policy remain slow, burdened by inertia and mistrust. Citizens and courts are increasingly filling the gaps left by political gridlock. Science advances in careful increments while capital surges ahead at digital speed. The defining question is no longer whether change is happening, but whether our institutions can keep pace with it. The future will be decided by which clock runs faster, the relentless speed of innovation or the deliberate rhythm of human systems trying to catch up. That's this week's Global Digest briefing. Make sure to tune in next time.